Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're tackling something almost everyone struggles with, time. Or maybe the feeling that there's just never enough of it.
Right, that feeling of being completely swamped. It doesn't really matter what you do, does it? Corporate law, surgery, teaching,
Yeah.
sports.
Accountants drowning in tax season,
Yeah,
salespeople chasing targets. The list goes on. It seems universal.
it really does.
So in this deep dive, we want to look at how we can spot and more importantly, get around these time traps that stop us from feeling in control and, maybe getting a bit more freedom back in our day.
Interestingly, it's not always about just managing your time better in the traditional sense.
No, that seems counterintuitive.
Well, the idea we're exploring is that it's more about understanding and sidestepping these specific traps first. Trying to organize chaos is, well, still chaotic.
Okay, so where do we start? What's the first big idea here?
Let's think about this analogy. A river of responsibilities.
Mm.
Sometimes it's flowing nice and easy.
Mm.
Other times, it's like a raging flood. Think Upper Klamath River in mid-May. Just completely overwhelming. Tasks pile up, obligations mount.
And you can't even see the obstacles clearly because the current's just too strong.
Exactly. You're just trying to stay afloat.
So what feeds this flood? A big part seems to be what the source material calls the yes economy.
Ah, yes. That tendency, especially for ambitious people, to just agree to everything that comes their way.
It feels like you have to sometimes.
Right. But there was a survey, I think back in 2001, by the Families and Work Institute. It found a huge percentage of working Americans felt overwhelmed.
Doing too many things at once, no time to reflect, working too fast, too hard.
It paints a pretty stressful picture.
Yeah.
They even coined a term, New Economy Depression Syndrome, NEDS, for the negative effects. It all stems from that initial yes.
How many times this week have you listening said yes when you probably felt stretched? It adds up.
It really does. So the logical first step to getting some control back is identifying and actually cutting out the unnecessary tasks.
Getting rid of the dead weight.
Precisely. We can call this the accumulation phase. It's about building boundaries, actively deciding what not to let into your river.
And it doesn't have to be drastic, right? The material suggests starting small.
Absolutely. You don't need to overhaul everything overnight. Maybe dedicate just a small slice of your work hours initially to setting up these filters, these boundaries. Discipline is key, but start manageable.
Okay, so we dam up the unnecessary stuff. But what about the things we have to do? The essential work that still seems to eat up all our productive time.
That brings us to the admission phase. Now the focus shifts to regulating those necessary tasks for efficiency. They have to get done, but maybe not in the way we're currently doing them.
Like paperwork, everyone's favorite.
Indeed. Instead of letting it pile up into this dreaded mountain.
That takes hours to climb.
Right. The suggestion is to block out specific short chunks of time for it. Maybe 30 minutes every couple of hours, or perhaps a block before lunch and another before you leave.
Consistent chipping away rather than a massive effort.
Exactly. And the material mentions a system, the Nifty 50 filing system, to help keep things organized within those blocks.
Nifty 50. Tell me more. How does that work?
It's basically 50 hanging folders. Some are for broad personal categories, family, fitness, finances, fun reviewed annually.
Okay.
Then you have 31 green folders, numbered 1 to 31 for the days of the month, for daily action items, and a few blue ones for future months or projects.
So a very structured way to handle incoming paper and tasks.
Correct. And the key insight is the suggested time for annual planning with this system is pretty minimal, maybe 8 to 24 hours a year total. That's like, what, 15 minutes a week. It saves time in the long run by preventing clutter and searching.
Makes sense. What about getting feedback from customers or even coworkers? That seems important, but potentially another time sink.
Good point. Feedback is valuable. For non-sales roles, the idea is maybe a quick, structured 30-minute meeting monthly with a coworker.
Structured being the key word.
Yes, using a standard survey, asking specific things about work habits, attitude, time use, gets you useful input without it becoming a long, rambling chat.
And for sales folks.
The recommendation is even more strategic. Design customer surveys to get feedback before you close the sale.
Oh, interesting. Why before?
So you can catch any issues where the right solution's offered, where calls returned promptly, with the team courteous, you fix problems before they impact the final deal or long-term satisfaction.
Proactive. I like that. Okay, another huge one. Communication. Emails, calls, texts, the constant pinging.
The bane of modern existence sometimes. Constant checking is a massive productivity killer. Again, it comes down to boundaries.
Setting specific times for it.
Exactly. Start modestly. Maybe the first 30 minutes of every other hour is for emails, calls, texts. The goal is to stop being purely reactive to every notification. One salesperson in the material boosted their results significantly just by doing this.
So we've damned the unnecessary, we're regulating the necessary. What's next? We still have the actual core work to do.
Right, that's the action phase. With the boundaries in place for the mission phase, you now focus on actually doing the important, productive work within those protected blocks of time. Even with fewer distractions, managing this core workload effectively is still crucial.
But as you get better, as your career grows, the workload often just increases,
Yeah.
right? It gets hard to handle everything yourself, even the important stuff. How do you avoid falling back into the yes trap or just drowning again?
That's where delegation comes in. Think of it as managing the downstream current of success. More success often means more flow, more
So
responsibility.
you need help steering the boat.
Precisely. The advice is to take incremental steps. Maybe start thinking about a part-time assistant. It's framed as an investment, not just an expense. Adopting a CEO mindset is key here.
Meaning?
Focusing your own time on the highest value activities, the things only you can do, and entrusting other competent tasks to others.
That can be hard for people who are used to doing everything themselves, though. Letting go.
It definitely can be a psychological barrier.
Right.
But the example given, Harry, I think his name was, drastically cut his hours and increased his income by building a team. It shows the power of effective delegation.
Okay, so streamlining, regulating, delegating. But then there's this other huge factor, technology.
Ah, yes. The assessment phase tackles this.
Yeah.
Technology promises efficiency, but, well, we all know the reality.
Spam, phishing, viruses, tech glitches, crashes.
Right, and just the sheer weight of expectations sometimes. The material shares relatable stories, a laptop virus, email systems failing, even simple things like a cell phone volume issue or struggling with a new camera.
It's not the tech itself necessarily.
No, it's often our dependence on it and maybe our unrealistic expectations that it will always work perfectly and instantly make us more productive.
So how do we manage the tech trap?
A few strategies.
Hmm.
Consciously limit usage sometimes. Substitute rather than stockpile. Get a new phone. Get rid of the old one. Don't carry both.
Avoid gadget overload?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And crucially, recognize that newer or fancier tech isn't always better or faster for a specific task. The analogy used is the tortoise and the hare.
Slow and steady wins a race.
Sort of. More like being deliberate and thoughtful about technology adoption, not just jumping on every new bandwagon assuming it's the answer.
Makes sense. We've talked about external factors like tasks and tech, but what about internal time traps, like getting stuck on past mistakes?
That's the failure trap. Dwelling on what went wrong can really steal time and energy from the present. The core message is simple. The only time you truly control is today.
There's a quote mentioned from a song, I think. This is your life, and today is all you've got now.
Right. But here's the paradox. While failures can feel like setbacks, if you handle them right, they can actually speed up long-term productivity. They're diagnostic tools.
How so?
They highlight where your processes are weak, where your assumptions were wrong. You learn, you adjust, you get better. Failure isn't final, it's feedback.
So it's about reframing it. The material mentions risks worth taking.
Yes, 3 specifically. Developing an impossible vision setting, really high goals. Becoming accountable to others, leveraging associates or mentors. And setting exceedingly high standards for yourself.
The idea being that even if you fall short of these huge goals, you'll likely achieve more than if you aimed low.
Exactly. Pushing boundaries involves the risk of failure, but that's where growth happens.
Okay, so from dealing with failure to maybe dealing with success, is there a trap there too?
Apparently so. It's called the party trap. You achieve some success, maybe make more money, have more free time,
Sounds good so far.
but then you risk overindulgence, maybe losing sight of what's truly valuable. Your free time starts to lose its meaning. King Solomon is cited as an example: wealth, pleasure, but ultimately feeling empty without a deeper purpose.
So how do you avoid the regrets of the party trap?
The material stresses 5 crucial investments for your free time: health managing dependencies, proactive care, finances sound principles like spending less than you make, saving, giving, relationships, time for family, friends, mentors, knowledge, continuous learning, seeking wisdom, and purpose, reflecting on your why and aligning your time with it.
These are the big pillars of a balanced life, really. Often the first things to get squeezed when work takes over.
Which leads directly into the next trap, the identity trap.
This is where your job becomes everything.
Pretty much. investing so much time in work that your professional role defines you entirely. The material notes Americans tend to work significantly more than Western Europeans, for instance.
I know the feeling. The first question people often ask is, what do you do?
Right. It shows how tied identity is to work in our culture. There's a story about someone named Ingrid whose devotion to her job just crowded out everything else, relationships, interests, everything. She ended up feeling isolated.
Work gives purpose, but it shouldn't be the only source of identity.
Exactly. A fulfilling life needs balance. You're also a spouse, a friend, a parent, a musician, a volunteer, whatever else matters to you. You need to nurture those other parts too.
So how do we fight this identity trap?
6 key conclusions about time are offered. Remember, time is finite. How you spend it defines you. Being busy isn't the same as being productive. Saying no is crucial. Rest is essential, not optional. And living intentionally, aligning actions with values, brings fulfillment.
It all circles back to being intentional about where this finite resource time actually goes.
Which brings us to the final big idea. Truly understanding the value of your time. We often talk about salary, but what's your time actually worth per hour?
Calculating your hourly rate.
Right. Total income divided by total hours worked. The surprising thing, many supposedly high-earning, swamped professionals find their actual hourly wage is, well, not that impressive, sometimes comparable to a recent grad.
Ouch. That's a wake-up call.
It can be. And the material points out that unrealistic quotas can drive bad behavior, focusing on quantity over quality or even unethical shortcuts. The real value isn't just tasks completed, it's the total return for the time invested.
So it's about working smarter on the right things.
Precisely. There's even a customer ranking system suggested VIP, Premier, Standard based on return and how much maintenance they require.
Focus most of your energy on the high-return, low-hassle clients.
That's the core idea, plus other strategies. Pre-qualify prospects properly. Never call without a clear purpose. Be willing to fire unprofitable clients who drain your time and turn transactions into long-term partnerships.
Because nurturing existing relationships is often more valuable than constantly chasing new ones.
Absolutely. Losing a good existing client because you didn't invest the time can be a huge hidden cost. It's about strategic allocation of your most precious resource.
Wow. Okay, that's a lot to unpack. These traps are definitely subtle but powerful.
They really are. But understanding them is the first step. By recognizing the river of responsibilities, the yes trap, unnecessary tasks, poorly managed necessary ones, lack of focus, not delegating, tech overload, the failure trap, the party trap, the identity trap, and undervaluing your time.
Our listeners can start to, hopefully, reclaim some control and find more freedom.
It's not a quick fix, as we said. It's a shift in perspective and habits.
So the first step for anyone listening is probably just reflection, right? Which of these traps feels most familiar?
Exactly. Awareness is key.
Yeah.
Where are you getting stuck?
And maybe a final thought to leave people with. What truly priceless moments, time with family, pursuing a passion, just relaxing, what are you potentially missing because these time traps have taken over?
Maybe now's the time to prioritize making space for those things that truly matter.
A powerful question. Before we wrap up, could you quickly summarize the key takeaways, maybe those 10 main points?
Sure, let's recap. 1. Feeling overwhelmed is common across professions. 2. Saying yes too often is a major cause of overload. 3. Start by identifying and eliminating unnecessary tasks. 4. Regulate necessary tasks like paperwork and communication with specific time blocks. 5. Maintain focus during dedicated work periods. 6. Delegate tasks effectively as your responsibilities grow. 7. Manage technology wisely. It can be a significant time drain. 8. View past failures as learning opportunities, not just setbacks. 9. Avoid the party trap by investing free time meaningfully in health, finances, relationships, knowledge, and purpose. 10. Cultivate a balanced identity beyond just your professional role.
Excellent. That really distills it down. Thank you for joining us for this deep dive. We hope this gives everyone some practical insights to navigate their own river of responsibilities and maybe, just maybe, reclaim a bit more of that precious time.